Oh, Canada. Welcome back. Last time we checked out Chapter 7, Section 1, looking at the history and the government of Canada. And we learned, of course, that the history of Canada certainly has some similarities with our history. We just disconnected with the British quite a bit earlier than Canadians did. Government is set up somewhat different also because Canada has a parliamentary form of government similar to the British, and their executive legislative branch are together. In the United States, we separate our branches of government. Our executive and our legislative branch are separate but equal, according to the Constitution. Today, we look at more connections that the United States has with Canada. The economy and the culture of Canada certainly has similarities. We count on Canada to buy our stuff, and they count on us to buy their stuff. Culturally, we share a lot of activities, sports, recreation, um, just like Canada. So today we'll take a look at economy and culture of Canada, our home and native land. So if we're talking about the economy and culture of Canada, the fur trade, major economic activity in early Canada. The First Nations, the early Native Americans to Canada, eventually are going to trade with European fishermen. And as this trade developed, more Europeans are going to move to Canada. The French and the English, of course, dominating. And the French and the English trading are going to encourage more people to come to Canada and more settlement of Canada. Now, if you are traveling in Canada today, maybe your bucket list includes Toronto. Toronto is the largest city in Canada, 3 million people. And the CN Tower is probably one of the most, well, it's a well-known landmark, not just in Toronto and Ontario, but probably all of Canada. Some fun facts for the CN Tower. The CN Tower is 1,800 feet tall. It has 147 floors, and it was named after the Canadian National Railroad, CN Tower. If you want to visit, the cost $44 to $54 to experience the three observation levels. It is a communications tower, and it is the tallest structure in Canada. If you want a view of the city and an amazing dining experience, you can dine at the restaurant at the top. It's not cheap. Your meal is going to cost between $60 and $70, so you might need to save up for that one. If you want to do the edge walk, tickets are $195 to do the edge walk for those of you that are adventurous. And you can also overlook the Toronto Blue Jays Stadium from the CN Tower. If you want to go west in Canada, go to Vancouver. Vancouver just looks like a beautiful city. I've added it to my bucket list. Vancouver's population is less than 1 million, so not as big as Toronto. But you have mountains, you have ocean, and Vancouver really prides itself in its outdoor activities. So add Toronto and Vancouver to your bucket list when it's safe for us to travel again. I've got my eyes on you. Another similarity that Canada has with the United States is a very diverse economy, and that's a good thing. Canada is a rich nation. It is industrial. It is urban. They trade. They have natural resources, manufacturing, and service industries. So again, similarities with the United States. If you look at some of the primary industries in Canada, Canada certainly farms. Agriculture is very dominant out in the prairie provinces. The logging industry as you go west and in some of the Atlantic provinces. Mining, there are resources in Canada. And of course, the fishing industry. Being on the Atlantic coast, Pacific coast, and Arctic coast, fishing is a primary economic activity. Canada, like the United States, farms domestically and for export in the logging industry, also known for paper production. They have mineral wealth, deposits of uranium, zinc, gold, silver. Canada also has oil to use domestically and for export. Again, fishing, yeah, when you have so much coastline, fishing is a you know, important economic activity. So you can fish in the east and the west, and if you're bold enough, go north to the Arctic coastline. Canada also manufactures 13% employed in manufacturing. It makes up 1/8 of the national gross domestic product. Service industries, however, are driving the economy today, more than 70% of the gross domestic product. Service industries, again, a variety, finance, transportation, tourism. Tourism, we'll do that again someday. Communications, as illustrated with the CN Tower in Toronto. Canada, yes, has always relied on its diverse economy. With its location, trade is very important. East Coast connection to Europe, West Coast connection to Asia. So trade has always been part of Canada's history. Another adventure on your bucket list. When we get to travel again, you can go farther west in Canada and you can check out the West Edmonton Mall in Alberta. Right now, much like us, it's curbside pickup only. Eventually that will change. Calls itself the largest mall in North America. Mall of America, Minneapolis might argue that. You've got more than 800 stores to visit. It opened in the early 1980s. In addition to all the shopping, there is an ice palace, there is a water park, there is a Galaxy Land theme park. You've got a little bit of everything under one roof here. But of course, they try to do that, keep everything under one roof because it gets cold in the wintertime. So another option on your bucket list for travel. Just hold on, we're going home, going home. Here we go, more connections between the United States and Canada. Like the US, Canada is also a land of many cultures. Diversity in the economy, diversity in culture. It's a good thing. You look at the examples of diversity, the Inuit population, the First Nations, the English, the French, and then Métis, a term to know, French and native descent. Recent immigration from Europe and other parts of Asia as well. Culturally, language, Canada is a bilingual nation. English and French are official languages. You also have languages of the First Nations and recent immigrants to Canada. With the cultural diversity, unfortunately, there has also been some cultural and religious conflicts throughout their history between the English-speaking Protestant and the French-speaking Roman Catholic. And Quebec is probably the best example of some of the conflicts. In 1995, citizens of Quebec even threatened secession. The French-speaking population felt like they were being discriminated against, and there was a referendum vote about seceding from Canada, and it was voted down very narrowly. A little over 50% of the population wanted to stay in Canada, and a little less than 50% wanted out. So at this point, Quebec still part of Canada. And I think the conflicts have lessened, and that's helped because they also have a Canadian Prime Minister who is French speaking from Quebec. And you don't have to travel all the way to France to get some French culture. You can head to Quebec, go to Montreal, go to Quebec City. Au revoir, bonjour, croissant. Canada's population certainly has had its share of challenges. Harsh environment, transportation have definitely influenced settlement throughout Canada. There are port cities, rich farmlands where you'll find most of the people living, most densely populated areas, but most of the population live close to the US border. And I know we'd probably like to think here in the United States they choose to live closer to us because they like us so much. it might have more to do with the fact that it is warmer the farther south you stay in Canada. And as we attempt to warm up here in the Midwest, I'm sure they're still hoping for some warm weather in Canada as well. The population in Canada, like the United States, it is increasingly urban. The movement is from rural areas to cities, but you do still have a population, especially in northern parts of Canada, where the native people live on reserve land. The Inuit population, an excellent example, living in the northern parts of Canada in their newly created territory of Nunavut. Just hold on, I'm going home, going home. So the last part of the section looks at life in Canada today. And again, more connections between us and Canada, which is why I've learned not to make fun of Canadians. Canadians, they are active. They have a high standard of living, much like the United States. They are well educated and a high literacy rate. So all positive for Canada. Sports and recreation, yeah, I don't know that they're born ice skating, but many Canadians learn it pretty quickly in their lives. And with ice skating, of course, hockey, probably another language in Canada. They like to fish, lots of coastlines, lots of rivers, lots of lakes. Canadians are skiers. They like to golf and they like the outdoors. They like to hunt. Canadians are known to do better at the Winter Olympics than the Summer Olympics. Yeah, they skate, they play hockey, and they ski. Golfing, I don't know, probably waiting for it to warm up a little bit before they head out to golf. Canada also has its own professional football league. They have the CFL, the Canadian Football League, so they're not part of our NFL, but we do share other professional sports teams. Our Major League Baseball, yep, Toronto Blue Jays, used to have the Montreal Expos, and now they're the World Series champion, Washington Nationals. Basketball, yep, NBA teams, Toronto Raptors, and hockey. I think we took them down a notch in hockey, didn't we? Go Blues. St. Louis Blues bringing home the Stanley Cup. So we can play hockey in the United States also. In the arts, literature of the First Nations, you've got early European literature as well. Visual arts of the Inuit, the First Nations. Got a picture there for you of some of the artwork, the totem poles, certainly well known in northern parts of Canada. And more recently, the Toronto-based Group of Seven. Within the performing arts, Canadians also enjoy music and dance and theater, much like Americans do as well. And Americans, of course, hoping to enjoy all of those activities together as soon as we can and as safely as we can. For all the times that you rain, and if you like the way you look that much. Oh, okay, we're back. So please complete your quiz over Chapter 7, Section 2. You've got a graphic organizer to complete over Chapter 7, Section 3, looking at the subregions of Canada, and we'll take a test next week. In the meantime, wash your hands, social distance, stay safe, hang in there. We'll get through this together. Adios, muchachos y muchachas.